We live in a world where we have to grow up. People in this business fall by the wayside because we forget that all of us ultimately answer to people.
The internet is on fire after Stephen Smith dropped cryptic clues about why his longtime First Take partner, Molly Qerim, suddenly ditched ESPN. And trust me, the story is messier than anyone thought. Her exit sent shockwaves across sports media on September 16th, 2025. One of the wildest shakeups in ESPN history. After nearly 2 decades at the network and 10 years running the show as the face of First Take, Molly blindsided everyone with an abrupt resignation that left fans, colleagues, and even Stephen himself speechless. Here's where it gets real crazy. Just the day before, on September 15th, Molly was cool as ever, moderating heated debates like nothing was wrong. By the next morning, she wasn't just stepping back for a break, she was gone. Erased from ESPN after 19 years of loyalty. At first, outlets like Sports Business Journal reported Molly would quietly bow out at the end of the year, but then came the twist. Molly hopped on Instagram and dropped a statement that flipped the whole narrative upside down and turned a surprising departure into a full-blown mystery. Molly's Instagram post kicked off with one chilling line. "The news came out earlier than I intended." Right there, you knew something exploded behind the scenes. This wasn't the usual polished farewell tour networks plan for their golden faces. This was sudden, raw, and messy.
Molly Qerim exiting ESPN, exiting First Take quite abruptly, one might say. Last night, Austin Karp of Sports Business Journal reported that Molly Qerim was exiting at the end of the year, but it turns out she is exiting effective immediately.
The very next morning, First Take hit the air, but something was off. Stephen A. sat alone at the desk, his voice shaky as he delivered what looked like a heartfelt goodbye. But the tone was cryptic, almost like he was caught completely off guard. He praised her, wished her success, but his words carried an edge that viewers couldn't ignore. Here's the kicker. Stephen stressed that Molly announced last night. Translation, he had no clue this was coming. By later that same day, on his...
Our friend Molly Qerim would greet you. However, Molly announced last night she will be departing from ESPN. She's hosted First Take for 10 years and elevated the show with her grace, her expertise, an incomparable kindness. She's been an enormous part of our success for a decade. Not only did she keep me and many others in line, she did it with dignity and class and kindness, to say the least.
Stephen A. Smith Show podcast, he finally let slip the hints that blew the whole story wide open, and that's when the real bombshell dropped. Stephen A. straight up admitted there was more to the story, but claimed it wasn't his place to expose it. That's basically him waving a red flag saying, "I know the truth."
We'll miss her and wish her every blessing on her future. I personally am grateful to her for her friendship, and I will miss spending every weekday morning with her right by my side.
But I'm not gonna say it. You can imagine how fans ran wild with theories after that. His reaction made one thing crystal clear. Molly's exit was way too sudden. Even ESPN's own president of content, Burke Magnus, backed this up, confessing the timing threw everyone off. He admitted Molly only dropped her statement after news leaked, meaning the whole thing spiraled out of their control. To understand just how big this blow was, you gotta look at Molly's legacy. She wasn't just some host. She was the engine that made First Take ESPN's...
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me.
Crown jewel. Since joining in 2006 and stepping in as permanent moderator by 2015, she turned the show into a ratings machine, pulling over half.
And a lot of times, some of these things happen, and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But it's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on.
A million viewers daily and racking up 250 million YouTube hits in 2023 alone. Molly wasn't just a moderator. She was the balance that kept First Take from going completely off the rails. While Stephen A. brought the fire, she brought the poise.
Decisions that we deem to be in our best interest, for whatever reason. And that story is for her to tell. Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I gonna share it with you? No. Because again, that's her story to tell.
The fact-checking and the rare female presence in a sports media world run mostly by men. Fans and critics alike gave her credit for raising the bar and making the show feel inclusive. Her grind at ESPN was legendary, starting as a digital contributor back in 2006, snatching an Emmy by 2008, and proving she could handle anything from college ball to the NFL. When the pressure was on live TV, Molly never flinched. She asked the tough questions, kept the chaos under control, and made it all look effortless. Her chemistry with Steven became the stuff of legend. 10 years of back and forth where she checked his wild takes, steered debates back on track, and kept audiences glued to the screen. That's why her exit shook the whole industry. There were no warning signs, no whispers of trouble, nothing. One day she was on set, the next day she vanished, leaving only a cryptic IG post and Steven's mysterious words to fill the silence. The timing of Molly's exit raised huge red flags about ESPN's inner circle. First Take was at the top of its game. Strong ratings, major cultural influence, and yet one of its most important players was suddenly gone with zero warning. For a network famous for smoothing out talent exits, this was a major breakdown. That's why fans instantly knew this wasn't some boring contract dispute. Something inside those negotiations went so sideways that Molly, a seasoned pro, decided it was better to cut ties immediately than ride out her deal. That screams serious drama. And here's where it gets really wild. This wasn't just about walking away from a show. This was about power, respect.
Molly was going through a contract negotiation, obviously, and that was not going well, obviously, because Molly wasn't getting what she wanted. What did Molly want? Molly wanted to do other things at the network, which included hosting her own show. Let me land on my feet within the network, still be at the worldwide leader, and do my thing. Now, that wasn't happening.
And money battles that spiraled completely out of control. Insiders say the backroom talks were explosive, with egos clashing and numbers that didn't add up. Let's talk dollars, because the money gap tells the whole story. In 2024, Stephen A. locked down a monster deal worth over $100 million across 5 years, cementing him as ESPN's top dog. Meanwhile, reports claim Molly was pulling in around $500,000 a year. Do the math. That's a massive pay gap for two people carrying the same show. We're talking about a 40-to-1 salary gap between Stephen A. and Molly. Not just a pay gap, a full-on canyon. Sources say this became the breaking point.
When he signs off on you, when he signs for you, you get what you want. But guess what? There's a flip to it as well. When he doesn't sign off on you, when he doesn't sign for you, you don't get what you want.
In Molly's contract talks, enter Marcellus Wiley, the former ESPN insider who worked there over a decade and knew Molly during her climb. He's been one of the loudest voices explaining what really went down, and his version makes ESPN look real shady. According to Wiley, Molly wasn't just pushing for more cash. She wanted growth, her own platform, real opportunities, and recognition for years of holding First Take together under insane pressure. But ESPN allegedly shut her down across the board, refusing to give her what she had more than earned. And let's not forget, Molly had proven herself time and time again, steering debates during LeBron's team changes, the NFL protest firestorms, and countless heated sports moments without letting the show collapse into chaos. But Wiley didn't stop there. He dropped the most explosive theory yet. Stephen A.'s massive influence inside ESPN might have tipped the scales in how these negotiations played out. Wiley's theory paints Stephen A. as ESPN's unofficial kingmaker, a man with the clout to make or break careers depending on who he decides to back. And when it came to Molly, he allegedly didn't use that power to lift her up. The receipts are there. Reports say Stephen's mega contract.
You're working at a network where Mina Kimes is making way more money than you, and Mina Kimes is the number on what show?
Gave him serious pull over First Take casting and show decisions. There are even documented cases of him influencing who got hired and who got cut around the show. That's not just a host, that's a boss behind the curtain. In entertainment, this kind of untouchable talent power isn't rare. When someone becomes too valuable to lose, they rack up influence way beyond their job title. With his $100 million deal and status as ESPN's face, Stephen A. had leverage no one else could touch, and according to Wiley, Stephen used that pull to push certain people forward. But Molly wasn't on that list. The timeline adds fuel to the fire too. ESPN's Burke Magnus admitted there was an original plan for Molly to leave gracefully by year's end, until something behind the scenes flipped the script and forced her sudden exit. The original plan sounded perfect. Molly was supposed to ease off First Take while stepping into bigger roles across ESPN. New shows, bigger assignments, the kind of career boost her resume clearly deserved. But in the final stretch of talks, that plan crumbled fast. Instead of a smooth transition, Molly was slapped with what insiders describe as a take-it-or-leave-it deal. And she chose to leave. That's how bad it got. She couldn't even stomach finishing out her contract, so what flipped the script? Sources say it all.
The worst kept secrets in the business is that they have a good relationship. They don't, right? They kind of tired on each other, etc. I'm not gonna go into all the messy details, but the point is they weren't cool with each other to the point someone you work with for 10 years, you don't even mention them when you're gone.
Came down to trust and respect, or rather the lack of it. Behind closed doors, Molly reportedly felt undervalued despite being a key part of First Take's success and a trailblazer for women in sports media. And the pay comparisons made it sting even more, because while Molly was anchoring ESPN's Crown Jewel, word is she was pulling in less than analysts on smaller, less important shows. That made the inequity impossible to ignore, and her exit looked less like a choice and more like the result of being pushed out. Imagine being the one holding down ESPN's biggest studio show day after day, and then watching people with smaller roles cash bigger checks. That frustration had to be boiling over. ESPN tried to hide behind budget cuts and cord-cutting struggles, pointing to layoffs and downsizing. But that excuse doesn't fly when they were still handing out monster contracts elsewhere. If the network could shell out over $20 million a year to keep Stephen A. happy, why
is she's seeing not only people getting paid and none of them really on the #1 show. Think about it, Malika's show, always struggling in terms of who's going to be on there. Oh, the cast is not it. Oh, they haven't got their traction yet, but she getting paid. Mina Kimes, a lot of people criticizing her. At the same time, she getting paid. And then you, Molly, I'm #2 on the #1 show we got, and I can't get none.
couldn't they give Molly a fraction of that to recognize her decade of work? The double standard becomes obvious when you compare how deals got handled. Stephen's extension was smooth, fast, and came with a historic payday. Molly's talks, they collapsed over way smaller requests, and all she wanted was fair pay and real career growth. The message was clear: keep Stephen A. untouchable, everyone else is replaceable. For Molly, that was more than insulting. It was devastating. And if Wiley's Kingmaker claims are true, it means ESPN runs less on merit and more on who's in Stephen's inner circle, creating a toxic culture where talent gets iced out, not because they lack skill, but because they lack the right ally. Here's where the story gets even darker. Peel back the money talk and you uncover something far uglier. Personal beef, gender politics, and a toxic ESPN culture insiders claim has been festering for years. The real drama isn't just about paychecks. It's about power, respect, and one man holding too much sway over the entire network. And the loudest voice calling it out? Former ESPN analyst Marcellus Wiley. He's been blunt, saying there was hidden beef between Molly and Stephen A. that the cameras never showed. His claims flipped the whole First Take narrative upside down. For a decade, fans thought they were watching real chemistry, fiery debates balanced with mutual respect. But according to Wiley, it was all a performance, a polished act to cover up building tensions behind the scenes. Think about it. 10 years of daily shows, events, promos, meetings, they look like work spouses. But if Wiley's right, the relationship was strained, fake, and purely professional. That revelation doesn't just expose friction. It paints ESPN as a workplace drowning in dysfunction, where what you see on screen is the opposite of what's really happening. The biggest bombshell comes from Wiley's claims about ESPN's culture, especially how female talent gets treated compared to men. He flat out said women at the network are systematically undervalued, and Molly's situation proves it. Imagine this. Molly, the face of ESPN's top studio show, watched other women in less...
I'm not talking about Molly here, but I'm watching, and I've been watching, over the last several years, people in this business fall by the wayside because we forget that all of us ultimately answer to people. We don't get to define our own value. We don't get to define our own worth.
Prominent roles get better pay and bigger opportunities, while she kept the crown jewel afloat and still got lowballed. That's not just unfair, that's a slap in the face. The toll had to be brutal. Not only was she being underpaid, but she had to watch her peers climb the ladder while doors stayed closed for her. The message was loud and clear. ESPN didn't see her true value. No matter how much she carried First Take, insiders say the final renewal offer was way below what Molly deserved, especially when stacked against contracts ESPN handed out elsewhere. And that's the insult, because Molly wasn't just another host. She kept First Take thriving through its peak years, building it into ESPN's #1 studio show. Yet the network still treated her like she was replaceable. Molly's gift was rare. She could juggle heated debates, keep things sharp, and still make First Take entertaining without losing control. Replacing that isn't just hard, it's nearly impossible. But the real eyebrow raiser? How Stephen A. handled the fallout. Instead of clarity, we got cryptic comments and podcast rants about leverage and knowing your place. Just days after Molly walked, he delivered what sounded like a veiled lecture on contracts, power, and business hierarchy. Fans instantly clocked it as shade. A not-so-subtle warning about what happens when someone dares to challenge the system. Said even though Stephen A. claimed he wasn't talking about Molly, the timing made it hard to believe. The subtext was clear. Know your role, don't overreach, and remember who's really pulling the strings at ESPN. That kind of passive-aggressive commentary is dangerous because it lets Stephen A. send a chilling message while keeping cover. He can always fall back on, "I was speaking generally." But insiders and fans alike know exactly who those words were aimed at. Everyone knows Stephen's leverage talk was really about Molly, and now the buzz is all about her next move. Word is Fox Sports has already put a major bag on the table, reportedly around $2 million a year. That's nearly 4 times what she was making at ESPN, and a clear sign that other networks see the value ESPN refused to. If Molly makes that jump, it won't just be a new gig, it'll be a direct shot at ESPN's throne. A Fox show with her at the center could steal First Take's shine and eat into its audience, something ESPN definitely doesn't want. Meanwhile, the network is scrambling to find a replacement, launching a 30 to 45-day audition process. But insiders say good luck, nobody can easily recreate the balance Molly brought to the table. The real question is, will ESPN pick someone bold enough to challenge Stephen A., or just a safe voice willing to play along? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, this saga is far from over. Make sure you hit that like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment below. And I'll see you on the next one.